1642, in a small town of Salem, witchcraft hysteria broke out. However, it wasn't the first civilization that experienced the work of the devil. European countries such as France, Italy, Germany, and England had witchcraft paranoia going on for more than 300 years, resulting in 40,000 to 50,000 executions. The witch hunt hysteria soon spread to the Americas in the late 1600s.
Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. According to Scriptures chapter 22, verse 18, witchcraft was declared a heresy. Early Christians were relatively tolerant of witchcraft and paganism. However, as the Roman Catholic Church came to power, attitudes towards witchcraft became aggressive. Witch hunts were soon used simply to get rid of enemies and denounce one another. However, people needed tangible evidence. In 1486, Mali Maleficarum, a guidebook to finding witches, was published. It was said that witches had the devil's mark, and upon discovering the mark of the devil, the people would probe or pierce the mark. If no pain was felt, then the person was indeed a witch, as it was unnatural to feel no pain. Another method used was water, or swimming a witch. Water, being natural, would reject all evil. Upon being lowered into the water, the innocent would sink. The last method was, of course, torture. The Mali Maleficarum encouraged the use of torture. Witchcraft was considered a crime against the church, and as a result, an act of treason.
In 1629, King Charles I granted a religious group called Puritans a charter. They were to settle in what was called Salem, Massachusetts, to become a model community. The Puritans believed that Satan and his forces were indeed real and were always watching. The beginnings of witchcraft in the Americas actually began in Charlestown in 1648, where Margaret Jones was accused of witchcraft and hanged. But it wouldn't be until 40 years later where witch hunts would spread fear into the hearts of people.
Simmering tensions, bitter disputes soon led to witch hunts in Salem, Massachusetts. A mere 500 people lived in Salem, a community on the outskirts. The people of Salem often lived in fear of their surroundings, wilderness community, which made it extremely susceptible to witch hunts. A religion of endless striving and unknown rewards made the Puritan religion extremely hard to follow. Puritans believed in predestination, the belief that your afterlife is already chosen.
The Salem witch hunt was sparked from the voodoo tricks and tales from Tituba, a Caribbean slave. Winter of 1691, Reverend Samuel Parris and his wife were visiting members of their parish, leaving their daughter Elizabeth Parris, age 9, and her 11-year-old cousin Abigail Williams in the care of a Caribbean Indian slave named Tituba. Tituba told the girls exciting tales of witchcraft, performed magic tricks, which soon led to trouble. The Puritan girls knew that this kind of behavior was incorrect according to their strict Puritan religion. However, they were fascinated.
Elizabeth and Abigail were soon joined with 6 other girls. The girls soon fell into fits, trances, and became suicidal. The girls were unable to listen to the preacher preach the words of God. Some barked like dogs, others screamed. The girls began acting erratically. All of these behaviors were strictly forbidden in the Puritan community. Worried, Reverend Samuel Parris consulted the Salem doctor. The doctor deemed the girls under the evil hand of witchcraft. Panic spread throughout Salem. The Reverend began interrogating the girls relentlessly. Then the accusations began flying.
Tituba, Sarah Good, and Sarah Osborne were the first to be accused. Tituba was a slave, which made her an outsider, whereas both Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne had low statuses in the community. They also had one critical thing in common. They did not attend church. Trials began. Suddenly, magistrates and priests in Salem began granting omissions of evidence that normally would have never been accepted in any other witchcraft proceedings. The people of Salem allowed spectral evidence to be admitted into the trials. This meant that the accuser had the ability to see the specter of the accused witch and obtain information from that. However, it was only evident to the accuser.
As the trials began, the girls gave testimonies in which they used spectral evidence. With each denial of the accused, the girls would respond with erratic behavior. Their behavior became extremely important in the proceeding of Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne.
Upon taking the stand, Tituba immediately confessed. She was just going to tell the magistrates and priests what she believed they wanted to hear. Tituba began telling fascinating stories about nightly fights on broomsticks, the devil visiting her, the spectral visits to harm the girls, but most importantly, signing the devil's book. According to her, there were 9 witches living in Salem. Tituba's testimony immediately caused paranoia in Salem. It immediately became Salem's Pandora box. Neighbors were accusing neighbors. Salem soon became a poisoned atmosphere.
The girls began accusing people of low social statuses to high social level people. The accusation of Rebecca Nurse changed Salem forever. People of Salem were shocked. The arrest of Rebecca Nurse soon split Salem in two. 39 people of Salem then signed a petition fighting for Rebecca Nurse's innocence. The number of accused of witchcraft increased greatly. The youngest accused of witchcraft was Dorcas Good, who was a mere 4-year-old girl. She was the daughter of the accused witch Sarah Good.
People who spoke out against the proceedings were also arrested. The first victim of the official Salem witch hunts was Bridget Bishop, a woman of great prominence. Bridget Bishop had been accused of witchcraft before. She was then hanged on June 2nd.
At trials, if the accused moved a certain way, the girls would too. Soon, the accused had one ironic way to survive: to confess. Confession was the one sure way to survive. Confession put one's fate in the hands of God. 55 of the 200 accused confessed. This didn't stop the girls. They began accusing people in other neighboring cities such as Marblehead, Boston, Charlestown, and more.
To their unprecedented fate. On July 19, 1692, 5 women were hanged as a result of witchcraft. Many others followed this fate. As Reverend George Burroughs was facing his death, he recited the Lord's Prayer word for word. This struck doubt in many people's heart. Witches were supposedly not able to recite the Lord's words. Over 200 were accused during the Salem witch trials, and 24 met death. Contradiction to common belief, no one was burned at the stake. It was not allowed according to English law. Of the 24 who lost their lives, 19 were hanged, 4 died in jail, and 1 man was crushed to death. Giles Corey had refused to enter a plea in trial. He was then pressed to death with large stones until his chest was crushed.
Deaths of the accused were not recorded. It was as if they had been wiped off the face of the earth. The girls began accusing people whom were not seen as witches. This was met with resistance, for they had gone too far. It was 5 years later until the people of Salem realized their grave mistake. On January 16, 1697, a day of public fasting was held for the forgiveness of God.
John Hale published one of the most famous apologies for the Salem witch trials in 1702. Of all the girls, Anne Putnam became the only girl of the accusers to ever apologize. It wouldn't be until 1957 until the guilty verdicts were reversed. Public fastings, apologies, money could never replace those innocent lives. Why did the girls accuse people of witchcraft? People believed that it was the attention they received. In a strict Puritan community, the amount of attention the girls were receiving was like rock star treatment. Others believed that they simply were deluded and believed the accused were witches. From this, we are able to note that we should never have fear and hysteria cloud our reason and judgment.